No, it's okay. That's okay.
Start with laughter. Right, so hello Anne-Lise. So today, our little chat, we're going to talk about universal mind. Mind. Within the 3 principles of mind, consciousness and thought that describe all human psychological experience, and principles that are not only the foundations for all psychological experience, but point towards the spiritual truth of what it is to be a human being. That these principles are pre-existing. They've always been there. They are powers that enable us to have the experience we have. So when we talk about universal mind, I think in any moment I would define it differently. So it's sometimes nicer to talk about our experience of that universal core principle from which everything comes.
And that is really the only thing that exists in it. That universal mind experience itself in a way, in different ways. And also, in many, it's not only within the principles, but also you hear many people talking about how we're all connected. And that is really the way we are connected through the universal mind. That we are actually just one part of this energy experience life. We're experiencing life in different aspects, and that is also this bit about there is nothing wrong, there is nothing right, there is nothing good or bad actually, because it's all coming from, it's just different experiences. Of course, sometimes it's hard to think like that when we label things and we say that you can do that, but you can't do that. This is okay, that's not okay. But if we pull it back to this universal mind, it's just an experience, isn't it? Everything.
It's just that experience. And when, I remember massage therapist also teaches mindfulness. He said, yeah, everything outside is neutral. Well, in some ways, everything is neutral. It's only through the power of thought and my thinking that it becomes unneutral in some way. The thing that occurred whilst you were talking is that imagine if it didn't work this way, that there isn't a universal mind, that there isn't this oneness.
But isn't that how most people live, though? That it isn't. That we are separated, that we are struggling and fighting each other, and
yeah, and that separation occurs within our personal mind, which it seems in our reality we experience in our bodies and in our individual consciousness. So when we talk about the universal principle of mind, this isn't empirical, this is subjective, but how do we know it exists as an underlying principle? For me, it's all about experience.
So how is that experience? What experiences make you believe that it is like this? Or
from my own life, and this is the thing with hindsight, one can look back in moments in our life when we did experience, get a glimpse of that universal force. But we didn't know it at the time, but we did know it. And now with this understanding, which I've always been on the edges of, and until a few years ago, it was like, I know it's there. Then I just got a glimpse of it. It was seeing that I am not separate from everything else. Or that when I haven't got anything on my mind, when I'm feeling deeply connected, when I've just got this feeling of just peace and joy, that, oh, I'm not having to drive the bus here. I'm not having to control anything. And someone could say, yeah, but that's just your learned behaviors and your skills. But when I reflect on it, it is that deeper feeling that goes with it. It has a different quality. So we talk about feelings, and then about emotions and moods and states. Now, this is something that's so intangible. As soon as you open your mouth to try and describe it, it's inadequate.
That's true.
And when I've experienced it, for example, when I've done my 3 principles trainings, retreats, got in a room full of people. I remember on the Clarity program with Jamie Smart last year, there was a sharing exercise, and I won't say the person, but she was sharing something in her life. She'd been through a difficult period, but she'd seen something so true and so impersonal. But for me, the way the group just felt, there was this briefly, I can only talk from my experience, this collective awareness and consciousness and this deep connectedness. And okay, I was identifying with it on a human level. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm feeling bad for this person, like sort of, with empathy or something. It was just like, yeah. It was like a knowing, I know exactly what she's talking about. And I can just feel the purity from which it's coming from. And I remember I had tinnitus at the time, and I've still got that. But for those, and I was all blocked up in one ear, everything went really cool. I could hear everything. It was like I was listening from a deeper place. And it's just part of human life to know that I'm only going to get glimpses now and again, but that's enough. And as soon as I think, oh, I want more of that, well, I've turned it into something.
Yeah, and then we start to hunt, and then we start forgetting living in the moment where it is accessible, because we start chasing it. It's easy that when we...
Yeah. So it's like when they say, oh, it's about remembering something deep down. So it's like, for me, not having to go through my memory banks. So I'm interested from your perspective, when you've experienced that deep connection to, let's say, something bigger than you, the physical form, the human being, the thinking being.
Yeah, it's the same as you describe, when you can really feel the part of connection. But I think the deepest and most profound experience was last fall in Spain on a Jack Pransky training, and we were asked to reflect upon the principles, and starting with thought and consciousness, and then the last one was to be mind. And we were sitting in a group, and I just saw this wholeness. It was, in a way, kind of a strange description, but like a uterus in a way. It was, and then it was contracting, and then exploding out, small particles, like all of us, all of what we experience as life, and then pulling back to this center of love or wholeness. Everything was there, everything was peace, everything was perfect, and that this was this never-ending pulling back, spreading out, pulling back, spreading out, goes on forever. So there is, because we hear people say there is nowhere to fall, and it's like nothing can really happen to you. and that nothing can really happen to is this eternal part that is really mind, isn't it? Experiencing itself in different ways. So us sitting here, we're really the same, split into different life forms just for the experience. And then eventually we will be pulled back and go out again. And maybe we recall it, maybe we don't, that we have had experiences before, but it was so beautiful. It was so, the words can't really cover it, but the feeling of, yes, we are really connected. And also, I think some, like walking in nature, and you can feel the life in even the trees and everything around sometimes.
Beautiful. And you just said it then, didn't you? It's feeling and being alive. That's why we talk about waking up to nature, seeing what is rather than what isn't. And recently with a friend client, she was saying, you know, what she wanted from this, you know, coaching I'm doing with her, working through March. So I don't know what I want. Like, well, forget that. That's the world of form and identification. Whether it's weight loss, feel less anxious, whatever it is. And then we boiled it down. Oh, I just want to be alive, to feel alive. So for me, you know, that was enough. That was it. It's like, wow, well, that's available to you at any moment. And that feeling of aliveness, that beingness, is only ever obscured through our thinking, our personal thinking, or our felt experience in our body. So if I'm feeling all stressed and anxious and everything's heavy up here and I'm disconnected, yeah, I'm not alive, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm asleep.
Hypnotized.
And that's why it makes so much sense for me that it's not something you can do or go looking for. Based on all your experiences to date. It has to be something beyond what you know cognitively.
Yeah.
That's stored from all your life experiences.
Yeah, and we do see it in small children, don't we? How they bounces back to this content, peaceful, or how they are alive the whole time. They do express all kinds of emotions and have no judgment on it, where they don't get trapped in what adults or older kids have learned. This is okay, this is not, don't do that. And all the rules and regulations and everything we make takes us further and further away. And we try to fit in instead of just being. And we lose, and then we start on that journey trying to find whatever we had when we were small again, I guess, because we all recall it somewhere. And that's why you can ask people and they want to be alive. They want inner peace. They want inner freedom. That's a lot of expressions a lot of people say.
Yeah.
And then we go on this journey outside of us, trying to fulfill the most natural thing.
Going back to your metaphor before, when you had your experience in Spain, the image I've got in mind is just like, yeah, this dot that then expands and then contracts. Experience, that's just universal mind in action, life force, becoming form. And then if we let nature take its course and the logic of it, well, it contracts, expands, contracts, expands. Well,
and you can see it in nature too, through the seasons.
Yeah. I'm thinking when we interfere with our thinking, when it expanded, we either try and hold on to it or we wrestle with it. So we inhibit a natural process. But the illusory nature of it is we can't.
Yeah.
And that, for me, is that it's a different way of looking at resilience, where you said that we can bounce back. Formless to form, formless to form. It's happening simultaneously.
Yeah.
And no wonder we struggle, because it's invisible.
Yeah. And we have learned to live in our head so much, and that we have to do something to get, or maybe even deserve, certain good feelings or good states. And that, yeah, takes us more and more away from. And then it's...
Yeah. And how about this? We always talk about, actually, something I haven't really thought about, the nature of the work. We do like to ask people, you know, when you feel connected, in the flow, and that kind of thing. But then we end up most of the time talking about when we're not, when we're thinking from the outside in, when we think the outside world can cause our experience, when our consciousness is low and we feel that we don't have that power within. The conversation does dominate that. And that's helpful in seeing, well, that's how it isn't. That's how it doesn't work. But the reason I mention that is that when we have these, I said it yesterday, peak experiences of being alive, we think it has been caused by a loved one doing something we really enjoy. And no wonder we're like, wow, I want some more of that. So when people do get depressed, anxious, get in a funk, or they are sleepwalking through life on autopilot, it's because it's like, well, I can't have that thing anymore. That's beyond my reach. Because my circumstances don't enable me to, or I don't deserve it, whatever. There's loads of thoughts.
Yeah.
And no wonder we then go searching for it. Oh, I want that feeling again, out in the physical material world. Or even in people on a spiritual path and journey. There's this whole thing of, I am getting there.
Just have to release something more, develop something more, and then meditate 10 hours more or whatever, and then we'll get there. So, and it's always there.
And how could it not be?
Because that's the only thing that really is, isn't it? The only true state.
Yeah, which for Sid Banks in the mid-70s, when he had his enlightenment experience, his epiphany, and he said, oh, it's all a world of thought. But then he started talking about the isness. And obviously then he developed it into the language of there being three principles. Or it is that isness. It's not an isn't-ness.
Good point.
But that's the world we live in our thought, in the world of thought, in our personal minds, isn't-ness. No wonder it's such hard work. So anyone watching this, if they've got this far, they might say, what on earth are they talking about?
Yeah. And suddenly they don't say anything. Huh? That's probably even more strange to some people. Here we're sitting talking and then we just become quiet and distant in our eyes.
But that's the moment of magic. Yes, it's lovely to fill our life with beautiful experiences. And then when we are in the flow, we are full of love. Yeah, we don't know it until after the fact. So, that's what we do when we work with people. We point to people, what was going on there? It's in those spaces. That's where the appreciation and the gratitude can come. And interesting, still, you know, in my peer group of therapists, they talk about people who are basically show more gratitude, they hug more people, all these things that look like positive behaviors that lead to well-being. What I've seen, and I know that that's the implication and consequence of connecting to something that's innate within us. So the other day I was with someone and we've reached a place of sort of just peace between us. And we just, you know, had just an hour or two together, but all the talking didn't need to happen anymore. No more analysis, no more trying to understand with a thinking mind why things happened, why things changed. And it's in that, I didn't realize until after, where I had this immense feeling of well-being and expandedness. And it was only that evening I texted this person. It's like, well, that was peace. That was that deep connection. But that was beyond our personal selves. That was, I called it, pure love. There was no attachment. And I said to her, it's like that feeling, that's always available to us.
Yeah. It's not only always available to us. I think that's really who we are. That is when we the personality or the me or the I or whatever that we identify with isn't really us. Who is us is this, again, universal mind experiencing ourselves. So everything can change. And we do change from we are born till we die in many ways, which is that thought generated experience. And we think it's so solid and it's so difficult to change. But behind that is who we really are, is always the only thing that ever exists, really exists, is this energy, this, with all the resources, everything that we think we need and that we are searching for outside of us. trying to develop the illusion in a way to become what we already are. It's kind of
it's a cosmic joke. Yeah.
it is, but it's so hard to remember sometimes, and it's so easy to forget because we identify so much with this person and all the concepts. All the definitions, all the experiences and memories that we have that we think make us, which isn't really making anything.
Mm. It just made me think there. I hadn't thought of it this way before, is that we've evolved. We're human beings. However evolution worked from a big gaseous mass through taking form, planet Earth, through millions of years of evolution, different life forms with different levels of consciousness, but who knows? But what I saw there is that, well, there's this gift. So when people say, oh, what's my purpose? What's my meaning in life kind of thing, that, well, to be given this experience. So yes, you know, as someone said to me, the person I was talking about before, she said, yeah, I came from nothing and I returned to nothing. So we've been given this window of opportunity to experience it in the world of form and for it to manifest.
Yeah, and also on that journey, I guess, remembering who we really are. And experiencing the simplicity when we let life, like you said in the beginning, it's not, or maybe that was before we started recording, I don't remember now, that it's not us doing it, actually. Life is living us. And if we let it,
Yeah.
if we, the persons, kind of step out of the way, which is kind of contradictory to the personal development, thinking that we have to step up, we have to take control, we have to be in charge, we have to, yes, we do, but it's a different way of being. It's a being in charge instead of doing in charge, in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, being the best version of me. Well, that can be limiting because, okay, it's like, yeah, I want to be happier all the time or kinder to people. It's like, well, except those days when you're not.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of the trap or the complications we have made for ourselves too. I know I've been there, that if everything wasn't perfect, how could I then be coaching and training coaches? And I think that's the liberation with the principles, is that it does go up and down. It is really part of the illusion that we have to be on top of the world all the time.
Yeah. And that, well, yeah, go on.
Yeah, and still that is part of the illusion, because it is when we get caught in the outside in, we feel like we're not on top of the world. And seeing that or understanding that gives us the freedom back again to this peaceful state where we are content, but maybe not the high, here I am, yeah. It's so different. It's deeper, it's more profound. It's the need to prove ourselves, kind of.
Yeah.
the way. I guess that's the ego fading, or that it's different than having to work for it, having to do all these exercises and techniques and work on your state of mind. So in a way, this understanding gives us permission to be humans, doesn't it?
Yeah, because what I'm hearing you saying, permission to be a human being, to ride the waves, to have the ups and the downs. But they wouldn't, they say, don't they? You wouldn't know about the highs unless there was the lows.
Good point.
And actually, just as you were saying it there, and going back to the point I think I was trying to make before, that it doesn't come out of my mouth, it's going to disappear in a minute. But the gift of being a human being, to be able to have this life, have this felt experience. Well, it's logical that if I was in just that enlightened state all the time, well, why would I want that? Because that's what I return to. So when I dip, it's like, and I see it again. And that inbuilt resilience, from that formless to form, just taking, so I can admire the beauty of that and be participant to that. I can be witness to that. That is a gift. So it's like the gift is those times of not seeing it.
Yeah, and the gift in, when you were talking now, is the gift in the gift being when not seeing it is really because that's the opportunity to remember who you are, instead of, it's like that's the intersection where we can either wake up and return to that peace, or we can go right into the illusion and start trying to fix and start blaming and analyzing and having a hell of experience sometimes.
Yeah. It's funny. I've got a metaphor that might break down, but just like, we're in the sea. In evolutionary terms, we crawled out the sea. But it's almost like that natural buoyancy will bring me to the surface. But we do swim underwater. We have a capacity to swim in this world of form, in this human experience. And I can swim and dive around. But what we do as human beings, it's like, right, I'm going to put a big oxygen tank on because I need something else so I can spend more time. And then actually I might build a submarine so I can go even deeper. I'm adding stuff to myself. I can swim and I can dive in this human experience. The whales have got it right. Just stay down there. Convert oxygen from water or whatever. If I allow myself, it's like, I can come to the surface. It's just that human experience. But if I feel like I haven't got enough equipment psychologically or in the material world, I've got a nicer house now, I've got possessions, I've got status. It's going to help me navigate the human water experience, the seas, the stormy seas. I can step out of that. I can float out of that.
Mm.
I'll stop the metaphor there, but it's the idea that we're always having to add something or change something.
And we don't. And still, I guess we will change. We will evolve. That's just part of nature. That's part of the process. Yet from a better perspective, or in a better way, if we stop interfering, if we start listening and just trust that. I guess the trees don't think how they're going to grow, do they? And how they're going to make the fruits, whatever kind they have. And
Yeah, that living intelligence.
yeah, and that's in us too.
Absolutely. And that's, for anyone watching this, just like, how is this helpful for me? Well, seeing insightfully that living intelligence within you, whether we talked about that resilience, that buoyancy, deeper connection to life, that seems helpful for me. So it's an evolution of thought. That there is this intelligence within us that, like you say, in nature, doesn't have to think about it. But knowing that that intelligence is always there, and the evidence is there in the way our body heals, the way it restores itself. It always seeks to be in homeostasis and equilibrium. You know, we're a miracle. So it's not just in nature. Look at ourselves. Yes, there are mutations and changes, and a lot of the influences are environmental, but we've still got this amazing inbuilt design for success. But in our minds, we don't see it. We interfere with it.
Yeah, because we think we have to do so much to make it happen.
Yeah. It's like, I'm trying to do open heart surgery, but I've got my toolkit from fixing my car. I don't know where that came from, but ain't gonna work.
Don't want to be your patient.
It's, yeah, but that's what we do to ourselves.
So we don't have to be in control. And I think I'm probably not the only one who was like, yeah, but then I'm just going to be sitting around doing nothing, literally.
Yeah.
And that might be thoughts popping into the heads of people listening to this too. It's like, if I'm not on the alert, working on myself, improving my life consciously the whole time, then I won't get what I want. But it's really not necessary. The more we step out of the way, the easier we do see what is needed, and we will take action, and we will do, but maybe not the way our head think it's the right or best way, or our personal mind. But
Yeah. And a phrase that popped into my head in the last day or so, I've been reading the book Awareness by Anthony de Mello. He was a Jesuit priest, but it's a brilliant book. It's really short little chapters. And he was just continually pointing to this. And I don't know if it was in the book, but it's that whole seeing God in all things. It's the first time I've used that word. But seeing that universal mind, that intelligence behind life everywhere. Or if someone watching this like, yeah, what does this mean as I go about my day or what I'm going to do? Well, it's all out there in our experience, as in the evidence of the intelligence behind life. So the phrase that was in my mind the other day when I was reading Tony DeMello was the God of small things. You can see the beauty and universal intelligence of life all around you. But also within ourselves. But we get scared of it.
Yeah. Because we want to put the power outside of us instead of inside, don't we? Sometimes.
Yeah, so for me, yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Well, it's, for me, the depersonalisation is ultimately empowering and liberating and freeing and transcending. I think that's what it was 2 years ago when, oh, thank God, it's not about me.
Yeah.
I don't matter.
No, you really don't exist, do you?
Well, thank you very much. And this...
No, I mean the you that thinks it matters
Absolutely,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah, the ego part, whatever that has to be so.
Yeah, and maybe summing up, this is where, for me, talking in this way is a pragmatic way, and if you can't laugh about it, you're taking it very seriously.
And life is a big game, isn't it? I guess the good thing is that we can't fail. There isn't going to be any horrible things happening if we don't get it right. We're just going to go back to this source of everything, and who knows, maybe we get a new try.
I'll get a new body, some new clothes. Who knows? It's not something I need to think about.
So in the meantime, just play, have fun, enjoy.
Yeah. Play, have fun, taste the fruits of life.
And then we can help each other, not taking it ourselves so seriously. Then it will become easier.
Absolutely. Great. Right. Well, for anyone watching, if there's even one moment in the last, 45 minutes that made you think in a slightly different way, you don't need to do anything with it. Just let it be. Let it simmer. Let it settle. And see what then shows up in your life that's different. Because that's the feedback mechanism. That deeper feeling that comes deep from within. That is that universal mind within you. And then taking form in your life. Riding the waves, going up and down. Okay, great. To be continued.
Yes, we will be back.
Right, stop recording.